Good afternoon, friends. I would like to, there is no need of introduction of the topic that I am going to take, as you could see on the slide. We would like to begin today with one of the prominent poet and his poem, that is Homeless by Vikram Seth in Indian writing in English. All of you must have studied so many poems by now, but today we are going to learn something that is new for you. That is how the contemporary poet is depicting the world in which one is existing. That is to know the world of our own but in English language, especially in the form of English poetry. Now, as you can see on the slide, that in this entire lecture we would like to focus upon certain issues. First of all, the introduction of the what is the thing called Indian writing in English and how the poetry came into the existence. Second thing, we would like to know something about the poet himself, Vikram Seth. Third thing, we would like to go through word by word meaning of the poem and the ethos and the message that poet wants to convey us by the web of his word, that is poetry. Following that, we would like to know which are the critical preoccupation or the critical analysis and the critical approaches that can be applied to the poem. Means at the same time when you are learning the literature, you should try to know or make your effort to understand how the theory, the literary theory, that whether it is arts for art's sake or art for life's sake, you must have been taught in the this theory theory section of the papers. Now here in our classroom we would like to know that how this theory, different theories, can be applied on the poem. Very simple poem, The Homeless. Students, before we move towards the poem, I would like to focus upon how Indian writing in English initiated and how it reached to the epitome that when a person of India was awarded with the best prize of Nobel for the sake of expressing his emotion in the language through the medium of English. Basically, it leads us back to the period of colonization. That during the period of colonization, we were slaves. And because of Macaulay and his theory, we all were compelled to learn and write in English. Not particularly for the purpose of expressing our feelings and emotions, but to express the need and the demand or to fulfill the desires of the British colony. Number one, the basic concept of introducing English language in India was to generate a class of Indians who would be in color and their appearance only Indian, but in their taste and their knowledge must be English. That was the intention to bring the English language to the India. Means the people of our own who would work for the people, those who were ruling us. Means the ruler, the Britishers. Now, even though that was the predestined or what we can say the foregone conclusion that this knowledge of English would help the Britishers to dominate this nation. Accordingly, for the in the initial stage, it happened so that it could help the Britishers to rule India comfortably. But as we can see the history of India, the first half of the 20th century, as we have experienced the freedom struggle of India, that majority of freedom fighters were belonging to the class which was very much aware of English education system. They were the fruits of English education system which help India to get its freedom. In a sense that even though Britishers introduced English for their betterment, but it was the English education, take any name of the prominent major freedom fighter, they all were well aware, well learned in the case of English. Be it Mahatma Gandhi, be it Subhash Chandra Bose, be it Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, as we have his name in the history of Indian writing in English, particularly the poetry, or anybody else, Sardar Patel or Jawaharlal Nehru, you take any name, they were well educated in English education system. Now, as we could see that very much foundation of this nation was laid through the help of English language. Why cannot we can make the use of the same language to make our nation become a powerful nation, powerful entity in the absence, the present of the entire world. Now, students, we will like to go one step ahead than that. That is how the poets of English, Indian writing in English, could express their feelings and emotions. Why and how they became successful. And here today we are going to discuss very much upon the author, the case of Vikram Seth, whose poem Homeless we are going to study today. He had been awarded more than one international prize for writing in English. He had been awarded Commonwealth, American as well as German prizes for the writing in English. Writing in international language means he is successful communicator of Indian feelings and emotion through the international language, that is English. Students, we would like to know how and which stage person called Vikram Seth came on the surface of Indian writing in English, and how we accepted him and the world awarded him with the prizes. First of all, as you can see on the screen on the PowerPoint presentation, that it was the colonial period from where the journey started. The first author who could write in that legacy of the colonial period was the Henry Desrosiers. You must remember that he was the professor in the Calcutta and very young scholar and diligent boy who was not happy person or the good person in the diary of the British or colonial people, and who at the very small age had to die. Following him we have the Doru Dutt, who had been from the family, the particular family background to that author is very much literary. That the one family had so many eminent writers in Indian writing in English that will be remembered for the times to come. Following her, there is the name of Sri Aurobindo, Maharishi Aurobindo, as you know, that Savitri and other, that he was the one such author who could always be remembered when there would be matter of communicating Indian ethos and Indian moral, Indian legacy or Indian thoughts through the medium of English. That be it Savitri or other work, he had communicated the Indian myths and Indian way of life to the world in the way that entire world had recognized that okay, this tradition, this particular way of life has so many things that can entertain, or what we can say, can teach the world what is the kind of real essence of life. Following him, there is the name of Sarojini Naidu. Students, as I have mentioned that all the majority of Indian freedom fighters belong to the one community that is called English educated community. Same such person was Sarojini Naidu. Following her, Nissim Ezekiel. You must have heard, or in the future in the MA you will have a kind of lesson or the kind of poem by the Nissim Ezekiel. And Kamala Das. Kamala Das, who passed away just recently, very well known author, award winning, and very well received author in case of our Indian writing in English. Students, why I have mentioned all these names in front of you, that they are, why their need is that to mention or to go first towards the Vikram Seth, that which thing leads us to the Vikram Seth. We have to find out the roots of that tree, and this root of this tree goes from the Henry Dorozio towards the Kamala Das, and from this journey of progress of Indian writing in English, you have been given the lesson, or you have been given the poem in the form of Homeless by the Vikram Seth. Now, to go particularly why English poetry came into the existence, I have wonderfully quoted from one of the wonderful history of Indian poetry in English, that the quote you can see on the screen, that there were two major things that led Indian poets to communicate with the world in English language. The two major aspects of feelings and emotion that led to the world the Indian way of, Indian tradition of expressing the feelings and emotion. Number one, the English language had to be sufficiently Indianized. Number one, that the English language had to equip itself with the qualities that can communicate Indian traditional way of thinking through the words and through the terminology, what we can say, the poetic expression. And after that, second necessary thing that was there, I have mentioned that there are two things that we have to know before we go to the any writing or anything that is in Indian writing in English. Especially in the case of poetry we are discussing right now, poetry in Indian writing in English came into the existence only when English become Indianized, that English language become the Indianized. Students, I would like to give you one homework over here in between, that kindly try to find out two words in the dictionary, a good Oxford or any good dictionary which gives you the roots of the word, from where the root, the word came itself. First word is the banyan tree, and second word is the juggernaut. This juggernaut and the banyan tree, if you would try to find out from the dictionary, you would come to know automatically that all the words that are in English are not from the English origin only. They are coming from Indian land as well. Our first topic that we are discussing here, that English has to be Indianized, sufficiently Indianized, as you can see on the screen, to express the reality or the real charm of Indian situation, and then it can reveal. Now I hope you must have noted the two words, the banyan tree and the juggernaut. Now the next part of this quotation is said that secondly, the Indians had to be sufficiently anglicized, means Indians also had to move upward or had to give their hands downward to chain themselves into the circle of English speaking world. Means there is nothing that can be called exclusive if you cannot communicate, or what we can say, if you cannot go with the language, the international language, you cannot be in the circle of international thinking or the global way of impact, or what we can say, analyzing the world. Means you have to have the help of chain of, what we can say, the international language. Then you would be connected with the global impact of the issues all around. Now following that, the second thing that the critic says is that the Indian writers, or the, what we can say, the very much local people has to be anglicized to use the English language to express themselves. Now this is second more important thing for us to analyze and discuss very particularly, that if you want to write yourself or if you want to voice your ideas in the English poetry, you have to be anglicized. Means your thinking process should start in English. Then and then you can put your emotions and the feelings in the words that is coming from the English language. There may be so many helps and the that's what we can aids to help you in find out the solution of the finding the words, but at least there should be the change of mind that I am going to use international language, that is English, while you are writing the poetry. That is, I have taken from the Indian poetry in English published in 1993. Now next slide you can see that who is Vikram Seth. Let us move towards the second major thing. After introduction, we are moving towards knowing who is Vikram Seth, the author's introduction, and then after we will move towards the poetry, and then last to the the critical approaches to the poem. Born in Calcutta 1952, Vikram Seth was educated in Dehradun, Oxford and Stanford, America. Now from these three places you can find out that he was fortunate enough to study in India, England and USA. Along with that, students, you can find out his PhD was on Chinese economic. Means he did his philosophical dissertation on the economy of Chinese villages. Means his education itself reveals that he was directly or indirectly connected with four cultures or the four dominant cultures of the world. Number one, that is Indian, Dehradun. Second, European, that is British, Oxford. Number three, Stanford, that is American. And number four, that is Chinese. Now according to that, you can see the depth of his understanding of various cultures around him and how they reflected in his work. Number one, his work, his prominent work reveals the From the Heaven Lake. This was his first and well known work written in 1983. It was his journey from China to India, that he used to come from the Tibet and Nepal, from that way towards India when he was doing his PhD. He was traveling from all the way from the China, from Tibet to the Nepal, and would enter into the Indian peninsula from the Nepal. Now the second prominent work is The Humble Administrator's Garden, written in 1985. It won him the Commonwealth Poetry Prize and Alice Hunt Bartlett Award for Poetry. Now you would be happy to know that the poem Homeless that we are going to discuss today belongs to the same prize winning book of poem, The Humble Administrator's Garden. Student, you must note down the dates of the work and the prize, because this can be helpful to make your impression while you are answering into the exam. They can be directly useful and make your impression into the mind of evaluator that you have had enough of research before coming to the examination hall. You have had enough of information collected by you before you are preparing for your exam. Now along with that, next important work that comes into the picture is I hope you can see the picture of Vikram Seth on the screen. The next work that I was mentioning to you, you can see the author with his work Two Lives, the recent work. He is reading into the public, he is giving the recitation in the public meeting, public gathering, and you must know that even today Vikram Seth is so much engaged with the public appearances that equally as a literary writer he is very well good or respected orator all around us. Amongst his, as we were discussing his prominent work, the next prominent work comes the Golden Gate and the Two Lives. Along with that, he could write the beastly stories, means the stories that were depicting the children like, this fable like stories. Now, as I have mentioned you, the Golden Gate, you can see on the screen, it won him the Commonwealth Poetry Prize and the Sahitya Akademi Award, along with the American Book of the Month Club New Voice Award. Now you can see the students that how much his work were appreciated, not only in India, not only in Europe, but even in America. The last significant work that I would like to mention here is The Suitable Boy, written in 1993. It won him the Commonwealth Writers' Prize Award in 1994. Similarly, as you can see on the screen, his prominent work. The first is From the Heaven's Lake, second is The Suitable Boy, The Equal Music, The Two Lives, The Collected Poems, The Golden Gate, The Chinese Notes, and The Beastly Stories, and The Mapping, and the other one. Now, why I am bringing all this in front of you, this work of him in front of you, because students, while you are researching inside the library, when you are determined to become a good literary student, you have to have understanding of work written by the author more than one, because there are so many works written by the author, but if you have the understanding of more than one work which is given prescribed in your syllabus, you can have the understanding of author properly more than what you can say. Means it can be helpful in your further studies as well, whether it is masters or you are going to have the civil service exams, because here not only one thing that to be learned, but through the medium of one poem you have to enter into the world of the particular writer, and you have to yourself find out how you can understand and evaluate the work, because in the civil service exams it is not given the pinpoint examination method. There you have to prepare yourself with so many things, and amongst these so many things I am just giving you the beginning, that with the help of the one poem you can reach at least to the major work of the poet that makes you enlightened and understanding the work itself. One step ahead, now as we had discussed the poet and his prominent work, I would like to focus now the whole time on the poem itself. Student, if you want to write down, please start writing, because this poem I also had to struggle a bit to find out the poem from the good resource, authentic resources. It is from the, as you can see, the humblest administrator's garden. Homeless is one such poem which touches all of us. We all, those who are from the middle class or the lower middle class or the higher upper middle class, had to have such experience in their life when we initiate our struggle of life. It is a poem that speaks about the condition in which a person who is living on the rent, in the rent house, they must have, or they can directly make oneself feel what the poet tries to speak. I begin the poem as you can see on the screen. I envy those who have a house of their own. I envy those who have a house of their own. Means the very beginning of the poem says that I don't have the house. And then a person envy those who have a house. Why he is envying? Who can say their feet rest on what is there alone? Now there is a reason. Who can say their feet rest on what is their own? He is envying the people, those who are well off. He is envying the people, those whose life is settled. is more or less confirmed that they are going to stay here, rest on what is their own, theirs alone. They need not to share the space in which they are living with anybody. It is their own, their own occupation. Who do not live on sufferances in stranger's cell, means those who are having the house need not to live on sufferances. They need not to struggle in their life. They need not to live inside the cells of the strangers. Means if you enter into the metropolitan city as the outsider, you have to stay at the places of the strangers if you want to rent your house. It is not easy to find a house for a stranger in the city. The same such thing has been given there, that even though you are a stranger, you have to stay at the place which belongs to the stranger. Means you cannot make a mark that the place belongs to you and you only. It belongs to someone else, that is stranger. As my family has all our life, and as I probably will. Student, I would like to make you understand what the poet very, there is a the charm of the word that he is using over here, that I probably will, at the end of this first stanza. He says that my family has already all our life spent the time in the house of the others, and I probably will, means that as my house, as my family had spent the whole life, and it is but natural that in future I also have to spend my life without a home. Means poet himself, the voice, the protagonist voice of the poem is homeless. Now whole paragraph, the first stanza, here you can find the rhyming pattern, somewhat rhyming pattern, but more or less this portion of the poem, this poem can be called the blank, in the form of blank verse. In the beginning, persona begins that I envy someone, but in the end it says that I probably would be helpless. I would not be having the house in future. Means I envy, but I know that I have no any other weapon in my hand than to become envious, jealous of the other people, those who are having the house. Along with that, one step ahead, as you can see in that, he is depicting how the people who are not having their own houses struggle in their life, that who cannot say their feet, that rest on what is their own. They have no any, what we can say, the attachment with the place where their feet are resting. They cannot or can never say that it belongs to them alone. They cannot make the possessive remark of the place where they are staying, where they are resting. It is unrest always there when you are staying inside the house of the others. Means you have to behave accordingly. You are not free to behave like anything. You have to behave in proper code and conduct. That there is a less percentage of the house owner, those who feel their, and the peoples, those who live in their houses as on the rent, there is less chance of having the family relationship between the both, because you as the homeless person is always given the dominating tone from the side of the owner. Means they themselves makes the distance from you, and this creation of distance is the very huge gap that makes the people, those who are homeless, uneasy in their life. Students, this is the first stanza, and the last stanza says, as you can see on the screen, that a place on the earth untenured. Now if I can have the house This is the imagination how you can have a house. A place on earth, untenured, soil, grass, brick, air. I know I will never have to move. Now, the moment I have a house, if the moment I get a place where I am going to stay for longer, the moment I will have a place on earth, untenure. Untenure means nobody has any occupation of the land before I went on the place, on the part of the earth. As you can see, the business of real estate is the one of the biggest business in the India, contemporary India, that we all are always in look, or if you can say, that Sunday, the Sunday articles of the newspaper, if you find out the advertisement, the major advertisement would be from the real estate brokers, that there is a kind of bungalow, there is a kind of housing facility. But why this business is booming? Because so many places are there in the world where people want to make their houses. People are homeless. That's why there is a business of the real estate that is booming. Because of that, as you can see in the beginning of this stanza, that a place on earth untenured, soil, grass, brick and air. To know I will never have to move means once I am inside my own house, I need not to move. Nobody can dare me to come out. Nobody can push me out of my place where I am resting. Means if you have to apply your mind over here, that the moment you are inside the rent house, anytime a house owner can make you move out of it and can make you find out the new place. And so many of us must have seen or experienced certain kind of feelings and emotion, that what happens if the moment house owners ask us to vacate their house, we are not prepared, we have to find out the new place, we don't know where we will go, and all such kind of this move, that is the word called move that has been introduced here by the poem. I know I will never have to move means the movement, the unprecedented movement that is with which homeless is there, is not with the person who is having the home here. To review the season from one layer means the place of resting, or the bed, or you can see the lounge from where a person takes the rest. That if you have the house, you can review the season from one place only, means you need not to worry about the next season. Once there is a rainy season, you protect yourself, you take the measures, the water will not come inside in the next season, next winter. Similarly, when night comes, to lie down in the peace, to know that I may die as soon I have slept, as may die as I have slept. Means to know that I may die as I have slept. Means if you are secure that I am going to stay here for longer, then you need not to worry about your death as well, because in the death, if you are on the rent house, you have to think that who will help you, who would come to make your crematorial procedure and all such kind of thing. But once you are the owner of the house, it is not only the house, but it is the role of the society that changes. Means society would become so much generous towards you the moment you are having the property along with you. Means you become the stronger if you have the economical power with you. You need not to worry about your death, you need not to worry about the other aspects of your life, as it has been mentioned over here, that things will not revert to a stranger's hand. Means things will not go to the anybody else's hand, that those I may keep what I have kept. Means whom I have loved, my property will transfer to the same, not to the person whom I don't know. Means, if you have a house, your future is secured. You have one place, as you can see, that is untenured soil, grass, brick, and air. That is not coming from someone else's generosity, that is your own in the moment you have the house. To know I will never have to move means you need not to have any worry of changing the house, and along with that, all this benefit makes one thing clear, that in the first stanza, poet tries to reveal the homelessness condition of the person who is not having the house. In the second stanza, he immediately changes his tone, that how a person can have the better life if the moment a person can have a house. Means, first stanza deals with the condition of the person who is not having the house. Second stanza at the same time reveals that what is the condition of the person who is having the house. This juxtaposition of the poet's thinking brings us to the level that what is the pain of the mind of a person who is not having the house. Now, students, you would ask you, there would be a question in your mind, how a person who had been educated in the Oxford, Stanford and the China can have the experience of the homeless person, because he must have been from the wealthy family who could got the education from the so many countries and the prestigious institutes of the world. But at the same time, as a student, he must have gone through some such experience of being homeless, because in Oxford, in Stanford, in China, he must have had to ask for the rent house. So similarly, in the beautiful way, poet conveys this feelings and emotion, which is, even though he is from the wealthy background, but which is very much voicing the pains and the feelings of the middle class or the lower middle class strata of this society. Now, students, if you can understand, I am beginning reciting the poem from once again. I envy those who have a house of their own, who can say their feet rest on what is there alone, who do not live on sufferance in stranger's cell, as my family has all our life, and as I probably will. Students, there would be a question in your mind, that what is the significance of this depiction that is there, that is given in the first stanza of the poetry. Why we need to focus on this particular poetry in comparison of the other poem that you must have been taught or you are going to learn in the times to come. Number one, as this is the poem by the Indian writer in English, the significant thing is that we can correlate our feelings and emotion with the same such poet and the poetry that has been given to us in our syllabus. The poet himself, as I have mentioned you, that must not have been the person who had problem to find out the home. He must have had the home first. But at the same time, as it is in our culture, it has been told in our tradition that the creative artist can enter into the body of others, means it is a par kaya pravesh. The poet enters into the mindset of the person or the poor person who is struggling in all his life. As it is mentioned in the last line, if you can remember, of the first stanza, as my family has all our life, means his family would not be that much poor, because he had been taught in Dehradun, Oxford and Stanford. But he is entering into the soul of others to express the general feelings and emotion, and beautifully and successfully it is received by the world, as one of the beautiful composition by any poet of the time. As you can see at the bottom, that it was first published in the 1985, and it was awarded for the best poetry prize from the Commonwealth as well as from the American people, as it is revealing the feelings and emotion of the people beautifully. The second stanza, I repeat myself, students kindly pay your attention on the text. A place on earth, untenure, soil, grass, brick and air. Our house is made of all this. Just remember, it is made of earth, it is made of soil, it is made of grass, it is made of brick, it is made of air as well. If there is no air, you would ask me, sir, how air makes the house? The answer is that if there is no air, how you could survive inside the home? Then, to know I will never have to move. To review the season from one layer. To know that I need not to go out in future. Means, as we have discussed already, even though poet is from the wealthy family, he is experiencing, he is giving the voice to the common man's suffering. He is giving the voice to the problems of the lower middle class person, that how much pain they would be suffering when they have to move from one place to the another. Second thing, he says that to review the season from one layer, that what would be the expectation of such person who is going through the pain of being homeless, that to review the season from one layer. I would experience the world from one place only. Then he says, when night comes to lie down in the peace, I know that I may die as I have slept. Now there is a typical use of pun over here by Vikram Seth, that when night comes, night not only in the physical form but in the intelligent, you can say, the psychological term as well. When there is an end, then to lie down in the peace. When there is a death, it is not the night of the day of our life, but it is night of the entire existence of the human being. When he is going to die, lie down in the peace. We lie down in the peace when there is a night. To know that I may die as I have slept, means it would be easy for me to die when I have the property, when I have something to hand over to my juniors, that the things will not revert to the stranger's hand. Whatever I have would pass on, that those I love may keep what I have kept. These things will pass on to the loved ones of mine. Now rapidly, students, which kind of critical approaches can be applied to this poem? Very rapidly, the modern approach to the poetry, in a sense that the poet, being one of the this interior part of the entire world, he had been to the London to the Stanford to the China to back to the India. He is one such modern mind who captures the mindset, or what we can say, the modern way of life, and what are the major problem of the modern life had been voiced here. Means here there is no mention of anything which is not modern. Means in the modern way of life, everybody is rushing towards the metropolitans, and if you are moving towards the metropolitan, it is indisputable that you have to suffer the struggle of your existence being the homeless in the metropolitan cities. Means he is giving the voice to all those modern people, those who are moving towards from the the villages or the smaller town to the metropolitan places, because due to this modernization of the society, there is a need of work to be done by the small people from the small village or the town to come to shift towards the metropolitans and to make their own existence in that particular metropolitan. The Marxist critical approach that you can apply, it voices the poet gives the voice to the mouth or to mindset of the middle class man, those who are not having the property with them, those who are not privileged people of the society. They have to make their own existence on their own. They are not golden spoon child. They are the real struggler. They are struggling for their own existence. And what Karl Marx has said, that there is a pyramid, bottom class makes the hard work and the top learns, or what we can say, they eat the fruit of the hard work done by the lower class. The third thing that we would apply on the poem, the critical approach, that is psychological. That the poet gives the voice to the psyche of the person who faces certain kind of struggle in their life. Psychological in the sense, there is a voice inside the poem that now I would sleep at the last with peace. Means there is a agony in the mind of the voice of the poet when he says that I am homeless. I have to move when the house owner asks me to move from here. He reveals the psychological setup or the mindset of the protagonist through revealing certain examples that move, lie down, sleep when the night comes. Means there is no peace in the mind of the protagonist or the voice of the poet or poem that gives us the example that he is well off, he is the golden spoon, or there is a, what we can say, there is a turmoil that you can understand out of the voice of the poem. The last and the least thing is that of postmodern thing. Student, you would like to ask me that, sir, how this postmodern thing is applicable over here. Student, you can see that the way of expressing the existence of the homeless person, the way he has given us the examples over here, the poet, are not directly coming from the traditional way of expression. He takes the help of various things, various aspects which make us know that it is a postmodern mindset. A person is happy only after having the particular property, or what we can say, the material aspect of the life. He is not happy until there is no material pleasure, or what we can say, materialistic security in his life. Number two, following that, the mindset that he has revealed, that it is not believing that peace is in one's own self. That was the idea of the age old tradition. He is breaking the tradition by asking or by revealing that the peace is in property, peace is in materialistic pleasure, peace is with a kind of worldly affairs. That makes it postmodern. Simply, next thing that I would like to focus upon, the postmodern aspect of the poet inside the poem. As you can see in the last line of the poem, as you can see on the your screen, that things will not revert to a stranger's hand, that those I love may keep what I have kept. Means extremely possessive expression of the mindset, that things will not revert. My things will be passed on to my own people. Now that extremely unsecured state of mind had been given the voice by the poet at this stage. That after all, why we need a home? Why we need a secure place? Because we need that our own things should be passed on to the people, those who belong to us. Means those who belong to us are only the people, those who should reap the fruit of the hard work that we have done. Means it is far beyond the thing that is what we are teaching in Indian tradition, that is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Here the poet voices just opposite to that, my own thing should pass on to my own people. Simply, student, as you can read the whole poem, you can apply so many theories over here. There is a whole lot of possibility to apply various kind of theories to understand and analyze the poem from your point of view. Number one, why you should do this? This critical approaches on the poem. Student, it is always beneficial. It is going to make you gain the benefit from the two papers part. Number one, it is going to help your paper that belongs to the theory, that is from the Plato that you are learning, that poet feeds to the feelings and emotion of the reader instead of drying them up. And the second thing, that till the Derrida you have this thing, that deconstructive thing, the structure that has been broken by the writer, and you cannot imagine or you cannot correlate the two things simultaneously. Now all this theory, if you learn these theories from the one point of view of the theoretical paper only, then it becomes difficult. But while you attach the literature, the real literature, as we could approach this theory upon this poem, you can remember the poet, you can remember the poem, and third thing, you can become very much equipped to use the theories on the contemporary literature. I hope, student, this must be useful to you in the future time to come. And if there can be any query, you can always contact me on my email ID. You can write down. It is HARDEEPSINH_yahoo.com. I repeat, it is HARDEEPSINH_yahoo.com. Students, it is not the only matter of the poetry that you can apply the critical approach upon. You can very well apply the approach of critical theories upon the work of drama, as we had studied post office in your syllabus. You can apply the this theory of Marxist and the other theories on the same drama. Along with that, you can apply the theory of postmodern theories upon the particular play by Shakespeare, that is that is in your syllabus, Romeo and Juliet. All these theories can come to your help at the time of answering into the exam, because nobody can, as being the student of this literature, can make you stop while you are writing something about the theory of applying upon the literature, because after all, theories are meant to be applied on the real literature. I hope, student, this is useful session for all of you. Kindly do let me know if there is any query on my email ID, as I have mentioned you, HARDEEPSINH_R@yahoo.com. Thanks a lot, students. I hope you enjoyed the session, and do let me know if there is any query. Namaskar.